Perfect. Okay, off the bat, before I start, I want to apologize for my background here. I made a mess of my office, and I've been trying to find places where, visually he'll be okay for us to speak. So I hope this works. Let me know if there's issues with my audio. Please don't hesitate to ask a question. I will check the question chat in the comment section after the presentation. So let's get started. Today's topic specifically on dashboarding and visual management. I will be presenting a case study that we did as an Analyze and Improve with a client a couple of years ago. That's where we did the case study that you'll see. It's more of a quick and dirty version of the case study, which is I guess the essence of this webinar. You don't need an elaborate sense of analysis and outputs to come up with a quick dashboard, find low-hanging fruit. You can always refine dashboard, add graphics, remove graphics. It's a continuous path. So what I will share with you is something that we did as part of an assessment. And an assessment was a 2-week assessment where we looked supply chain from front to end, and within that we did data analysis, which we then converted into a dashboard to identify quick wins, something that we could do quickly within a few weeks or a couple of months at best, but certainly not long-winded program. So let's get started. What is dashboard and visual management? What does that term mean? The two different words here. So a dashboard is a place for viewing and directing essential business KPIs. Essentially, it is ideally it's a tool on your workstation. So it's a laptop or a PC if you're static, where you can log in. That gets updated frequently with actual data coming in from the backend from your company ERP or other data sources, and it can provide you the most accurate current status. That's what the purpose of that. It's just communicating that data to you in a visual way so that when you look at it, you can summarize it very quickly. Visual management is a lean term, and it can be electronic or on a static on a whiteboard as well. It displays information in the workplace to inform team members. It's to ensure work standards are being followed and to highlight or prevent problems. This is you can use dashboard as a form of visual management, but the essence of what we're trying to say is visually we're able to communicate the data in a more effective manner, rather than have spreadsheets and have everybody interpret the data themselves. We're able to define the interpretation of a set piece of data, have it presented, and then follow through on that aspect. What makes a dashboard useful? You can take insights from many different data sets. You can transform these into visualizations. And the biggest, I guess, pro here is that it prevents data from being misinterpreted. That is, there's a set way that we as an organization will review this information. As a team, as a company, as a department, we are reviewing this data in a set way. So we're not all looking at Excel sheets, doing our own math, coming up with our own formulas, and then having two different sets of interpretations. We as a team will be able to look at this information collectively and in a unified manner. So when we're speaking, we're all on the same plane. When does it become burdensome? Because this is part of it. The more we add in as another dashboard, as another visual management tool, at the end of the day, we have to make it a value lever. So if we add too much onto the dashboard, or if we add too many charts and graphics that are nice to look at but don't provide any value to the team's routine or review process, then you're taking up valuable real estate. It looks great, but it's not adding any value. If you have poor visual design, if the charts aren't representative of how the data is to be viewed, then you're losing avenues of your message. The message is being lost because the visual is, you're spending more time understanding the visual than the actual what the visual is expected to communicate. Limited functionality. This is if you don't have the option to change dates, for example, or add in departments, remove departments, add in times of day, areas. If it's a very static like it's almost like a piece of paper, there's you won't be able to answer the questions in real time. It'll always require, okay, let's go back and check, or let's go back and check, or let's redo this again. In the dashboard that we have, and here's the great thing about a dashboard: you don't need specialized software to do a dashboard. Pivot tables or an Excel form, if you combine them in a single area, could be a dashboard as well. So you don't need Power BI or Tableau or any of these other tools. You could use it as simply as having it on an Excel sheet. If we like PowerPoint better, you can link the Excel charts to them. And again, with Excel, I'm picking on Excel as the tool because that's the one we use the most common one, spreadsheet tool. You have the ability to put in filters as well. So you, as a visual tool, you're able to chop and change data to a point where it can become personalized to yourself, and then you take a level above, it goes to your team, level above, it goes to your department. So having that flexibility, having that functionality is almost key to ensuring that it stays, you can get the usefulness out of it. And then the last thing is restricting access. And what that simply means is I, as a supervisor or manager, am the only one who can pull up this dashboard on my computer. So when I have a meeting, we can't have the team prepare. We can't have the team look at insights before coming to the meeting. It's the manager or the supervisor is the roadblock to coming in, reviewing it together, doing troubleshooting. So you're talking about a lot of time being spent understanding and interpreting the data, as opposed to having it available to everybody. And everybody is responsible for their own little piece of the pie. They can take a look at what happened, what didn't happen, and what the plan is. And then it could be a more wholesome conversation as well. So as an example, when we used to do routine as part of the team, I used to ensure that the dashboard meetings or meetings with visual management, I think, were all stand-up meetings. And that way, it was the essence was we're not sitting down for long periods of time. We're standing up, we're reviewing it, we're getting to the key points, and then we have a plan forward that, like, if it needs a deeper dive, we take it offline. The whole team may not need to be involved in that. And if it is a very specific point that the team needs to do, we set up a small amount of time later on in the week, and we focus on that specific area. So think about a dashboard. You're walking up, you look at the TV, and you say, that's okay, that's interesting. And then, okay, these are my takeaways. I'm going to go in and do some the work around that. So that's really the essence of it. Now, without spending too much time on the who, what, why, and where, let's get to the case study specifically. We're speaking about the quick and dirty version of a dashboard. So A and I visited a client site for supply chain assessment. As part of the output, we were required to help the client identify low-hanging fruit, easy wins. And I put the assessment into context. When we say a supply chain assessment, it was a review of policies and procedures, the procurement process, the procurement approvals, the logistics, inventory, warehouse management, and the data behind all of these areas. So when we say we're doing a quick assessment and a quick and dirty, we completed this in within a day or so. However, if you're looking at a very specific area, you could complete this in a few hours. So that's what we did, and what we came up with was this. This is the output that we had. Now, bear in mind, it's been sanitized to remove any references to the client, as well as their logo. But to a large extent, this is what we had, and it was 6 charts, 6 things that we thought of and said, from a procurement perspective, tactically is where we can make the largest impact in the shortest amount of time, and we can take away some actions that may require training, that may require some quick wins with contracting with suppliers, and it gives us some insights on where we are spending our money and where we're spending our effort. To a large extent, when we looked at this dashboard, we were looking at it from the effort perspective. We're all constrained with the resources and the ebb and flow of needs to be met with the operation. We want to make sure that we're spending our resources, spending the right amount of time in the right spaces, and we're actually meeting the needs of an organization. I have to keep going back to this and say procurement is is not the driver. It's not. It doesn't. It's not the moneymaker within the organization. We're a support role, helping organization or the operations drive value, and our job is to be as nimble as we can, meeting the requirements for auditability and compliance. While so there's a fine balance that we have to pay to be compliant, to have integrity, as well as meet the needs of the operations as well. So as a quick output of an assessment, we came up with this one. So let's go through the 6 charts, right? So we had total requisitions. We looked at dollars that are pending. We have we had the 3 bars. So we said, okay, overdue is a small amount of that in the current state. Let's look at it from a monthly trend perspective. As soon as we hit, we're like, oh wow, we have a huge bump up in November. And then it tapers down in December, as you would expect with the holiday season, and then a bump up again in January, and then slow down. And so we need to look at what's happening within those time periods. Is it the end of the year exclusively? Is it maintenance time? Maintenance is it shutdowns are having an effect, or is it the planning phase, and then we have slowdown requisitions and a kick up once we've completed the planning? And then when we looked at the daily trend. And of course, when we look at the chart on the left on the material requisition chart, sorry, here, it coincides with here, right? So we have a significant peak in the daily side in November, and we know that collectively November is the largest month as well. Then we looked at our supply partners, people who are, we rely on for them to meet our needs. So when we go through this and we say, oh, supplier number 1, PO volume, we're issuing them 175 POs a day. Or a month, I forget the specific metric, but in this case, supplier 1 was the largest. We had the largest spend. Makes sense. Second one is supplier 2. We're only issuing 23, but the value isn't there. It's so what we wanted to see is what's the effort with value. So what we automatically realize is there's a lot of effort here. There's a lot of value here. And then we go to in our total requisitions that have been issued, due versus overdue. We see supplier 1, so we have largest volume, top 5, and then we see this graphic as well. So let's get into the specifics. I have it on the next slide. So what did we learn? When we looked at the total requisition chart, we said many requisitions are being processed quickly. So what does that mean? It either indicates a strong procurement process. That means we know what we're buying. We have all the data available to us. With available pricing, or it's likely that we're issuing a high number of ad hoc purchase requests. We're going in and saying I need this, and then a little while later we're like, oh wow, I missed that in my check. I need to go back and put it in a requisition. So every requisition is an act of buying for a procurement team, and as a procurement team, the purpose we need to look at the actual act and see how do I minimize my effort to the maximum value. That is, do I combine my purchases with the same vendor? As an operations, what we would request is, Mr. Operations, could you come in and take a look and say, can you give me a combined demand plan that I can go out once, and then even though you need a requirement met through the many months of the year, I could have this as a bulk purchase, so you're not putting in a lot of requisitions and then having them go from on time to due to overdue. And affecting the actual output for the business. The second step is a significant amount of requisitions are being processed before the end of the year. Now, with larger organizations, they have calendar years as their budgets. So there's budgetary restrictions. So what is this? It's an opportunity to improve the planning process for procurement. Some items may not be able to be procured within a short time frame. They may need larger lead times. So at that time, when you look at this trend, you say, okay, it's an avenue for me to sit down with my partners and say, guys, this is what we're seeing. How do we make this better? And you can actually have this as the reason it's part of the quick and dirty is because we all know what we want, and we are fairly certain on what we can or cannot afford. So that having that visibility up front will help reduce the number of the spike here in a specific month, which will help process requests faster and not have anything overdue, or in some cases you cannot meet the budgetary guideline, and then that money can no longer be spent in the calendar year. The next step is what I was alluding to, is supplier one has the largest spend, but many requisitions are processed as overdue. So do I look at this and say, oh yeah, it's taking too long? No, I look at this and say, maybe there's a training opportunity from this from a system perspective. There are many fields in ERPs that are nice to have. There's a few that are must-haves, and as people with large amount of workload and significant pressure, we all usually want to find the easiest way out. What do I need to put at a minimum to get to the next step? In certain cases with requisitions, the need by date is very important for two reasons. One, when you're tracking performance of the procurement team, this is critical. And the second is that need by date gets communicated to the supplier in the PO form, in an actual form as well. So you can have it on two different tracking mechanisms. And the third one, the best in class, is that need by date then becomes a source of conversation between the procurement team and operations, saying, how many requisitions do I have outstanding? What are you doing for each of them? The need by date is coming, or we're 10 days out. What's happening? Has a PO been issued? Is a delivery en route? Is it in the warehouse? Is it waiting for scan? The need by date becomes a source of a very value-added conversation. And again, it is about planning. It is about making sure the needs are met within a quick time frame. So I have my most important supplier. I issue a lot of POs to them. And that brings me to the next chart. Supplier one, a lot of POs. Supplier one, a lot of value. There's a contracting opportunity to implement a favorable pricing model, and B, to implement solutions like the Amazon model, where you go in and check out from a catalog, and then the pricing is stated there. The material list is not static; it keeps getting updated to the latest, I guess, version of it. So you could have a widget which may have gotten an update. As if it's a static model, then you'd have to go in and update your own ERP. But if it's more like an Amazon, it would get updated on the back end with a reference to the old part number. So when you search it, it'll come up as well. So there's many favorable ways to reduce cost and increase efficiency that is not linked to hard savings in a contract. So as a procurement analyst, or with the operational team together as a partnership, you come up with, this is what my need is, this is how much I need in a day, this is the rolling that I need. Okay, that's great. Now let's look at what the type of catalogs we can get from supplier 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe supplier 1 is not the best option, or maybe in this case, supplier 1 is the best option. They know our business, they're familiar with it. Now we need to help ask their assistance to get to a better maturity level within our own organization. So there are many value levers we can pull. The least of which is changing suppliers. So in this case, that's what we learned. So if I was to wrap up the many learnings we have here, and I should have put another slide in, but let's go back here. What did we learn? We learned that we're doing a lot of ad hoc purchases. So first things first, what we need to understand is what is the originator of these purchases. So that's the low-hanging fruit. Once we can address the root cause, then we can maybe have a reduction in the number of ad hocs. Over here, we have November as a key date. So we need to go back immediately with our key counterparts or stakeholders and say, what's happening in November? What do you need this year that you're planning for November? Maybe you can pull it forward in October or September and have that processed prior to that date, so level out the workload. In this case, we need to understand, is the too overdue really true? That means we're behind in terms of work, or is it a system issue? And if it's a system issue, it's a great training opportunity to create super user groups within operational procurement that collaborate for system upgrades, that collaborate with training and improvements. And the last portion here is let's reach out to the supplier. Supplier oftentimes will already have this data and is just waiting for an invitation to come in and say, this is what I can do for you in return for. So now the in return for is a conversation that is a more value-added conversation that you can embark on. So as a wrap-up, what I'd like to get to is a dashboard oftentimes is marketed as, like it's a great tool, but it does not need an extraordinary amount of time for you to get the value that you're looking for. Oftentimes, something like what we did in a day can give us a lot of areas of opportunities that we can start chasing. The larger ones, yes, you start, and to maintain routines once you implement them, yes, the dashboard is key, and maybe you want to spend a little bit more time making it the right dashboard, but it is a continuous evolving, it's an evolving, I don't know what the right word is here, it's an evolving system. Certain routines, once you get them right, it may negate a certain part of the dashboard that you were reviewing every day. Now it needs to be replaced with something else that is more important. So it's ever evolving. And that is the end of the presentation. Our A&I approach, like we mentioned, is a customized approach. We review the journey that all of the clients are in, and the visual management and dashboard toolkit is part of our continuous improvement philosophy. So it is just it's a toolkit, it's an offering that we have that's part of other areas of focus that we look at when we're doing an assessment. And again, if you have any contacts, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or anyone of us at the Analyze and Improve team. Here, stop sharing. Let's take a look. Do we have any questions? Okay, so since we don't have any questions, thank you all for attending. Give you back 5 minutes of your lunchtime. And if you have any questions after the fact, please don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you and have a great Wednesday.
Yeah, I guess people did answer the poll questions, right? Yeah, they did. Okay.
Yeah, I only got one or two, essentially.
Okay. All right.